Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and start tonight's webinar because we're tight on time. Um, and as people come in, we're having trouble with the passcode, so I will figure out a way to reschedule this so that everybody can see it. Welcome to this month's homeschool webinar, More Than a Mom. We'll be discussing how to select the right homeschool programs and opportunities outside the home for your family. Ooh, all kinds of technical difficulties today. All right. I'm Allison Smith. My husband William and I are homeschool veterans who have literally done it all in the homeschool world. We've mentored hundreds of homeschool families in the past 20 years, and usually that was over a cup of coffee or we invited people into our home. But since COVID, we've had kind of an explosion of people who have wanted our help and asked for our help. So we're using technology in new ways like this webinar today to help other homeschool families. We've started offering these free webinars to answer some of the most asked questions, with the only goal is to offer our expertise and our experience. If you live in extreme Northeast Georgia, north of Athens, and you're still within an hour or so, we still offer those free in-person mentoring opportunities for you. So give us a call. All right, we got moved forward. Let's see. Move you back. That was just a little preview of what we're doing today, huh? All right. Do you know what happens when I go to Costco? It's one of two things when I go to Costco without a list. All right. Sometimes I walk in and I see everything that I want. Everything looks great. They have all that seasonal stuff at the beginning, and I just load up the cart. I go into the food section and I see all these huge boxes of everything, and I load it up and I buy everything. And then I get home, my budget, because I've spent several $100s. My budget is spent for the month of groceries, and I end up with all these things that I may not use again. All right. Then the other thing that happens is some days I go without a list and I'm overwhelmed. Maybe I'm just not in the mood to shop that day, but I walk in and it takes me about an hour to get to our local Costco. So I walk in, I walk all the way down all the aisles, even the normal stuff that I might be attracted to. I just never pick it up and I walk right out with nothing. I have left Costco with nothing before because there's too much stuff. I just don't know what to pick. Whether it's curriculum or schedules or outside programs or opportunities, we all have to have a list before we start because it helps us in both circumstances. Today, I'm going to help you write your own plan. This plan or list can change every year. It can fit different needs as they arise. You can change your mind when you see it's not working. Notice I said when, because it does happen that you change your mind. So today's objectives are to better understand the teaching options available to homeschool families and what they mean, to develop a criteria to pick outside teaching options, to learn strategies to find outside teaching options online and locally. All right, over time, I've developed this system to help you decide your criteria for almost everything in your homeschool. I call it the rate system. R stands for resources, and we would think of that a lot of times in terms of our finances, but I also include in that the people and also the supplies that you have. A stands for abilities. That's your ability as the parent and also for your kids. And T stands for time. I break that into 3 categories. That's time to plan, time to teach, and time to grade. And the last one is your effort or your motivation. What's your short-term motivation to homeschool and what is your long-term motivation? Because they're not always exactly the same. So I tell you these because I kind of talk in terms of these as we go along. All right, for most new homeschoolers, they're shocked when I tell them that curriculum is probably the 3rd or the 4th thing that you should consider or buy or even think about before in your learning at home. The most important is the people that you surround yourself with. Think back on your decision to homeschool. Most of us in the beginning knew very little about what and how to teach. But how do we learn those things? We can Google them. We can search the internet. We can talk to friends who also search the internet before they talk to us. But we just never know sometimes if that's true information when we do that. So the people you surround your family with are extremely influential. They know you personally and intimately. A mentor or someone who is experienced homeschooler can give you wise counsel to help you decide what is best for your family individually. When you have a problem, you can contact them quickly and easily to help you make changes on the fly. Most importantly, growing your support network with mature homeschoolers is natural. We want to learn from each other, so it's an instinct to learn and enjoy others. We titled this workshop More Than a Mom because we've seen at homeschooling long-term with positive drive towards a goal or meeting a long-term goal is largely dependent on the support network you build before you experience trouble, before there's that crisis point. We only have so much time to dedicate to homeschooling. We have other things to do, whether we work, whether we do our laundry, whether we cook and clean, whether we are taking the kids to ball practice. We all need a support community to help us use our time more efficiently. Sometimes we don't want to do it all. We don't want to learn some crazy subject that our third grader wants to pick up. And sometimes we're tired by the third one and we just don't want to teach life science again. So there's no judgment at all for a parent that admits they don't want to do something in particular in their homeschool. We just have to find the outside support community to do it. I'll share this next thought from both sides. When I was first homeschooling, some of the most helpful older homeschoolers freely shared what they had learned in their journey. And now that I'm in that situation, I want to share these things with you. So people are generous. They want to share with you what they've learned. And when we build our support community, it's just a natural extension of our relationships. We've admitted that time is limited. We don't want to do it all, and we do have people who want to help. The number of options to help homeschoolers is absolutely mind-blowing. Maybe you know that already, and you're like me when I go to on those days when I go to Costco and I just leave without buying anything. You have a paralysis by analysis. You see all the options and you don't know what to pick or how to pick. On the other hand, you may have filled your schedule with a co-op, a play group, and a Bible study. You're tired and your schedule's so full that you're skipping other things like learning and maybe even a good meal, and even worse, maybe your budget's suffering. So let's start with a simple list of options before we discuss how to select them for your family. These options generally are organized from the smallest to the largest, or least like a school to the most like a traditional school. The first is a tutor. Did you know that you are a tutor? You may think of a tutor as a person who helps overcoming learning deficiencies or failures. But in the homeschool setting, I want you to think about a tutor the same way you think a piano teacher. You hire a tutor for a specific time for a specific set of skills. You can hire or trade with anyone eligible by law and you deem qualified to teach your kids. It's either in person or online. We're seeing an explosion of former teachers offer tutoring services online, which is really helpful because it's very flexible, either individually or as study groups. And don't forget that trading, teaching, and services can also stretch your budget for tutoring. So if you have a service or you have something in your home like gardening or eggs or sewing or something like that, barter with someone else so that you can use that in your budget to use a tutor, which are very useful. All right, a slightly larger group that you probably haven't heard of is a learning pod. A learning pod brings together a small group of families who agree to a uniform set of values and curriculum. They're highly adaptable and varied, so nailing down a definition is kind of difficult for me to do. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. My daughter and two of her friends got together once a week to complete their science labs together when they were in high school. The parents, us, picked the curriculum together, and we were all like-minded. They were all friends, so we knew each other, and we taught. I'm the one that taught, and then a different family hosted the class each week. That's one example. And now here's another example. 2 sets of parents are nurses working 12-hour shifts. They want to homeschool, and they decide to manage their schedules so that one parent each day is off of work and supervises the learning of the kids in both families. So you could have, say you have 2 families with 4 kids all combined, and you agree as 2 families to school together. Some characteristics of pods are that they are extremely small. I'd say 3 families or less, and definitely 10 kids or less. They fit the needs of a like-minded families who set the goals together. Location, curriculum, and budget are all adaptable, and they may last as long as you want, a year, a semester, a month, a week, or however long you want them to last. I believe that pods are going to be the future of homeschooling, in that they help us gather together for a common goal and share life. We learn all together, and we're reducing the burden of the teaching and grading and all of the other things that come along with it. All right, next we have inside a micro school. With these, I want you to think of that one-room schoolhouse of Little House on the Prairie. And the second thing I want you to think about is the word micro, which means small, and school. We all kind of know what that looks like. It may look like this, a table or desks or something. These are also taking on some different forms because they are small, and they are taught many times by professional teachers. So a lot of them start in a home where a parent can take their kids each day or a few times a week to a hired teacher who instructs. I recently saw a couple moms and former teachers who had formed a kindergarten through 2nd Montessori micro school in a commercial building. And so they had 2 cohorts, one that came on Monday and Wednesday, and one that came on Tuesday and Thursday. They taught 4 days a week, and they had 2 different sets of 20 kids total. So they had the same number of kids that they might have had in their public school setting, but they were able to service them in a smaller area, and they focused primarily on that Montessori method. We're seeing a huge influx of entrepreneurs and problem solving with micro schools. So we're seeing a lot of kids with special needs. So you might have a micro school for just dyslexic kids, or a micro school for just neurodivergent kids, and they're very small, very adaptable. But also we're seeing a lot of the teachers are professionals, so they have been trained in these individual, very specific techniques. So we might even see like a gifted one as well. So most require very little parent involvement, but can sometimes get a little pricey because you're getting a low student-teacher ratio and an excellent ratio, or excellent resource with a teacher that has a lot of expertise. All right, the next one. Have you ever heard of a co-op? That's a generic term for something that you've probably heard of. Every probably homeschool family knows what these are about. Do you know what co-op actually stands for? It stands for cooperation. There has traditionally been the expectation that each family comes to a co-op with resources and abilities to share with other families, cooperating together to teach their children. Parents have some control, but it's kind of limited in what they're taught. First, because the co-op is subject to what the parents can teach. So if we don't have a chemistry teacher, we can't teach chemistry. Second, because of the larger group, we have to have a little bit more unification in the learning. So a lot of times we'll see more of a cycle of how classes are taught, as opposed to every class that you've ever thought of. So if a co-op offers math, you may have pre-algebra 1 year or every other year, or you may have biology offered every other year instead of every year, just because they don't have enough students to cover those classes. They crazy, very widely in cost, depending on the structure. Some you just are charged a flat fee for the year, and you get all the classes you want. Some charge a fee by the class, and then some are very small. They try to reduce the fees, and they may just charge you a supply fee. By way of example, I helped to found a co-op that grew to about 75 kids and 25 families. We started very small with 5 kids who met weekly for science lab. This was a different actually a different organization than the pod that came later. But at its peak, we offered 5 class periods with parents from every type of learning situation and future outcome. So we had kids that were not going to college, kids that were going to very exclusive colleges. We had every different kind of family and family situation you could think of. So demand was huge, and it was so much so that we ended up disbanding because we did not have enough teachers, or actually parents, who were willing to teach. So demand exceeded the availability of teachers, which is another characteristic of co-ops, because most are parent-led. When it is no longer there to meet the parents, many fail to continue. So we find that they don't last for very long. Or if they do, then someone's got a great organization structure with it. All right, so have you seen the hybrid cars? They run off of multiple fuels, and that's the same idea behind a hybrid homeschool program. Hybrids utilize both parents and professional teachers in homeschooling. They spend a day or two at the school location, and we're even seeing some closer to Atlanta, Georgia, that have extracurriculars on odd days as well. So the other days of the week, after the days that they're at the school location, and when I say school location, it can also be online as well. They're with family to complete assignments. So hybrids are the most like schools, traditional schools, and that parents may select a track or a course for their student, but the hybrid school, the hybrid program itself, selects the curriculum and the teachers, and it also selects the people who attend the hybrid as well. They make the criteria for that. Costs for these would be, I would say, comparable to a small private school to maybe a prorated one. So like say that the hybrid school meets once a week, you might expect to pay 1/5 of the cost of the private schools in your area, plus a supply fee, plus some administration fees usually. So it's similar to like a small private school. These are good for many 2-income families or single parents that are opting for them, because they allow families to technically homeschool without the direct requirement to teach. On the days the hybrid doesn't meet, your child can go to a grandparent or another family's home, and they can complete their assignments there. So those are the most often, those are the programs we see most often outside of the home. These next two, I'm going to say we can kind of dovetail. So you may have these two options as part of the other options that I told you a few minutes ago. An umbrella school is an option required in some states as an option to homeschool. So think of an umbrella and what it does for you in the rain. It doesn't really touch you. Instead, you hold it over yourself for protection. So umbrella programs help you determine the progress with meetings and oversight into what you're doing and how your teaching is and how effective it is. So they're looking at everything you're doing, and they're coming alongside of you. So you may have a conference to show samples of work or test scores and discuss progress, but these are not required in every state. So you'll want to check your state's homeschool law to see if you're required or if this is an option that you may want to consider. And again, they may combine with something else, like an umbrella school, maybe a co-op. A co-op may have an umbrella program on top of it, or a hybrid the same way. So you may combine this with something else. All right, the next one is one of the most hotly debated programs in the homeschool community, and that's accredited programs. Curriculum is not accredited. I'm going to say that one more time. Curriculum is not accredited. Programs are accredited by an outside agency, and what this agency does is that it assesses a general standard for the program and the outcome. Accreditation looks more at the what than the how or how well. It does not certify the level of quality at all. Does that blow your mind? For most people, it does. And I'm not going to tell you if you need an accredited program. And again, some hybrids are accredited. I don't see very many co-ops accredited. We see some micro schools that are accredited though. State law and your own individual needs dictate the path on whether you need accreditation. I'm going to give you an example. Our family graduated 3 unaccredited homeschoolers who all attended college, the one of their choice, with partial to full academic scholarships. And you might be able to guess which camp I'm on the need for accreditation. But I'll show you 2 examples that I can think of kind of off the top of my head where accreditation might be useful for your family. You have a high schooler who is starting high school, so a ninth grader, they're starting high school, and you're really not sure if you're going to go all the way through to 12th grade. So you might want to choose an accredited program because it's going to be much easier to place your student back into a high school program. Notice I said high school, I didn't say anything lower. In the other cases, most places are going to test your kids to see where they are and then place them in a grade accordingly. All right, the second one is if you are not willing or able to complete the paperwork that you need to get lottery or government funded scholarships for college. So in many states now we see government funded scholarships or lottery funded scholarships for college. There is a little bit extra paperwork a lot of times for homeschoolers if they're eligible for those funds. A lot of parents elect to do accredited programs because they see that as an easier route to get those scholarships. I just want to remind you that you're going to have to pay for the accredited program, and they are going to tell you how to homeschool. So you have to just make the choice on whether that option is right for your family. So on the subject of accreditation, that's all I'm going to leave it at unless you have questions at the end. All right, so those are the major programs and a good overview of most of the types of programs that we see in the homeschooling realm. So you might see some, I want to remind you, you might see some overlap in some of those. So how in the world, with all those options, do we pick from all those choices? So here's some criteria that is not what I don't want you to pick from. Your friends are going to XYZ co-op and we're going to go to carpool. So you're going to pick it based on what all your friends are going to do. Which one is the best to put out the least effort? Which one's going to be the easiest for me? All right. And which one costs the least? In most cases, those are not the best criteria for you to pick a co-op, a outside homeschool program. The reason those are poor at finding the best option and programs for your family is they take little to no consideration into why you are homeschooling and what we value. Do you remember at the beginning of the workshop where I explained that curriculum is maybe the third or the fourth consideration when you start? If I can convince you of anything today, it's that considering your values and your purpose in homeschooling, your calling first, before you even consider anything else in your lessons, your programs, your curriculum, anything else that you choose is going to help you be successful in homeschooling. What is important to you changes from very little from year to year. Your values are pretty steady. Your purpose is pretty steady, but what does change are those rate items that I explained at the beginning. Remember, those are the resources, your abilities, your time, and your effort. All three of these are what should lead you to the right option right now. Okay, so your values are like your foundation. Your purpose reminds you of your long-term goals. Your rate is what is going on in your family right now. And all of those lead you to the choice that you should make right now. And that should be our goal, is to choose what's best for right now to lead us to those other things. All right, in this next year, I'm going to help teach a community Bible study. As part of that position, I met with the children's director, and I knew they have a homeschooling option, a homeschooling track there. So I knew she was going to ask me about some homeschooling resources and people to talk to. So anyway, I just thought off the top of my head after I knew we were going to have coffee, and I looked down at the sheet of paper. I had typed out over 20 contacts in just a 5-county area in rural Northeast Georgia. We are very small counties. So you may be wondering, like, how do I know about all these groups and options? So I've been building my homeschool support group for 20 years now. I've been doing this for a long time. So if your community is small, don't be discouraged. We started with 4 families from our church, and that was it. So I'm going to encourage you to think local first when you build your support community. The people you know and the people who know you are going to be the ones most willing to help first. The first resource in finding an in-person support group is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association search engine, and I'll put that into the workshop notes, a link to that in the notes. The second is a search by location plus homeschool on Facebook. All kinds of, even if you don't have an in-person group, we have all sorts of groups that are location based on Facebook. Third is your local library. Our libraries are these secret opportunities that we don't always consider. Ask the manager, don't just show up to the program. Ask the manager or the children's coordinator who they know. Attend some of the children's program and talk to the parents. Odds are there's other homeschool parents there. So you'll also get to know some of the other parents, and then the homeschool parents are always at the library activities. So then you'll network with them. So these local options are the ones you need to seek out before you need them. So before you say, oh gosh, I can't teach this year, I need to find a co-op. Okay, so we're not waiting until the last minute to do this. Even today, when a parent asks me about a program or they need some sort of academic help or something, I can pull up a mental directory in my mind. So even if that same program that I'm thinking of isn't operating, I can usually connect with someone in that program, and then they can kind of jumpstart my search. So I'm not always starting from scratch. So think of your local support community as your first networking option. After you fleshed out your network, that's the time where you can turn on your computer and seek out those online options. While searching online is far the easiest method, and to find lots of opportunities, it's also a great way to get yourself overwhelmed by all the options. Okay, so you may end up like me where you go into Costco and you don't buy anything because there's too much stuff out there. You don't know what to pick. Even more, and I hate to say this, but I'm amazed by the lack of wisdom shared in almost every homeschool group I see online. Sorry, it's true. There's just a lot of wrong answers in there. So I give the same advice I give in your curriculum search. Give very specific information in your questions and list your criteria before you read the suggestion and answers. So that way you can weed out anybody that's telling you, if you ask, I want an online option for a tutor, and they say, oh, my next door neighbor is a tutor, you can weed out all of the what I would call wrong answers for your family. In my experience, well-meaning moms who have only homeschooled a couple or for years don't give the best advice, or also the most correct advice. It doesn't matter what kind of degree you have, if they're certified or whatever. Homeschooling is just this totally different animal than regular school, and so you, the parent, should determine all the criteria for your options. All right, let's look at some of the online options and options you might want to explore as they're becoming more popular. The first one is tutors online. Through COVID, I think we saw a lot of teachers leave the school systems. And so now we're seeing more and more of those offer tutoring online. And that is a great opportunity for you to connect with, say, a Spanish teacher in New Mexico, or a engineer in Silicon Valley, or something like that. So tutors online are something you're going to want to continue to look at. The next one is videos on demand. We're seeing more regular curriculum options or more traditional curriculum options, and people are adding on video on demand, so that they're kind of coming alongside of the regular curriculum. So no longer do you have to buy a certain curriculum and then a video option that goes along with it. You might find a teacher that teaches that curriculum. That's very helpful, so that you can get different types of teaching and different personalities that way. The next one is interest-specific hybrids. And this is crazy because I see this a lot online as well. I have a friend whose son is into like I think a motocross, and so they have a hybrid that teaches just for that. So that's pretty interesting. So they're able to travel and compete with the hybrid. We see that a lot with sports too. All right, and the next one is individual course options. So if you decide you don't want to teach Spanish 1, or you don't have a way to teach Spanish 1, your child can take Spanish 1. Or if you decide that maybe you have 2 kids together and you want to let them take a course, you take 1 course at a time and just take it a la carte. So those are some options online you want to look for. All right, so how do you determine the quality and the compatibility with your homeschool? The first thing I want to say is interview them. Don't just look what they have online. Send them a message, send them an email, talk with a person on the phone if you can. The next one is to check their statement of faith, about us, or what we believe page. If Christian curriculum, if something that is a biblical worldview is important to you, then you need to check that page to see what they do. There's a very popular one right now that has questionable statement of faith, and no one knows what it is because it's pretty inexpensive, and so people just like it because it's inexpensive. The next one is to try a free trial. So the summertime is a good time for that. And don't you just look at it, have your kids look at it as well. If it's offered, try that 30-day trial or 15-day trial or whatever. And the last one, and it should be one of the first things you do, is ask your support community. What's worked for you? Meet them over coffee, meet them at the playground, meet them at the library or whatever, and talk over these with your support community, your in-person support community. I've seen full Facebook groups and websites dedicated to lists of homeschool opportunities. If you see them, join them, bookmark the site, and then routinely go back and look at them for reference, because homeschoolers are notoriously fluid. They change their minds. Your needs change from year to year. So to get a list and think that it's going to stay static is not really realistic. And that's one of the things with this seminar, that I'm not going to give you a list of things. All right, so we have a limited amount of time today, and so I feel like I've rushed through this, and so I'm going to offer everyone who's attended a free 15-minute mentoring session, whether you need to help with your purpose or understanding what I'm talking about with rate, because this is a new concept for you, or if you just like me to help you make a personal list of options or places to find options, I can help investigate those for you. All right, so we're doing, I hope you've enjoyed this webinar, but we're doing these once a month. We may end up doing them a little bit more than once a month. With the technical difficulties, I have a feeling we're going to repeat this one this week. Next month we'll be talking about unifying the grown-ups, and that is making sure that the parents are on the same page, how to get through that. And then in September we'll talk about how to overcome mistakes without quitting. And the last one is October. We're repeating our Discovering Your Purpose, where I'll help you make a purpose statement. Something just to know, we've had a lot of feedback from parents about the timing of things. We can never get it perfect to go with everybody's schedule. So I'm working on an on-demand course that's going to kind of combine all of these items in a 5-step process to start homeschooling. And a lot of these ideas that I'm doing in these webinars will be included in it, but the video will be evergreen. You'll be able to start it and stop it whenever you have a chance. All right, so we have about 3 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions? Thanks so much for the blessing and sharing our experience with you. Here's our contact information on this slide. I'm also going to send it in the workshop notes. We're on social media and share some there, and we'll send you those workshop notes probably tomorrow. But if you have specific questions and you'd like to help us answer, please give us an email. We'll answer those as we're able to. I'm pretty used to writing long emails back with long answers, because I really want you to get all the details and help you a lot. And then we'll get back to you as we can. In a few days, you'll also receive an email requesting feedback. If you'll consider completing that form, because we're continuing to offer more options with this. And I really want to know what kinds of things that would be helpful for you. Hope we see you next month.